And welcome in, everybody, to Scout's Eye on Football. I am Chris Landry, continuing with our NFL Draft Series preview. I'm going to make sure that I silence the phone a little bit so we don't get disturbed. We are previewing the AFC South. If you have been with us the past couple of days, those of you that join us each and every Wednesday at this time, and we appreciate you doing so, we have been doing some special draft preview editions at 4 p.m. Central Time. We started that on Monday, did it yesterday, going to do it again today, going to do it tomorrow and Friday, and then we're going to do it next week. We are taking each division and breaking down the rosters of the teams, what's happening in free agency, kind of look at their draft capital, look at options in each round, just kind of give an overview. I mean, this is what the draft is all about. It's about getting your team better, assessing where you are, and assessing as an organization, as a team, as a roster. Those are the things that we have to get done come draft time. So we're gonna do that and get you through. We're gonna do the AFC South this morning. This afternoon, we're going to do the AFC West, and that will finish the AFC. Thursday, we will do NFC East. Friday, NFC North, and then Monday, NFC South. Tuesday, NFC West, and we'll get you through that. We are also taking your questions in the chat room, so bring them on. We'll do that. A reminder that we have detailed inside the film room analysis of each and every team on the clock. Draft room strategy goes over in greater detail than we're able to get here. Then, of course, we have the complete scouting reports on everybody that's going to be drafted or undrafted. We're going to have got all those scouting reports up for you. Check those out by position. Then we've got the draft boards. We've got the position boards, which is the vertical boards, and where the cutoff points are. And then we're going to have we have the horizontal board, which is the best overall player. So that gives you the best view of the draft and understanding where the cutoff points are, as I see them. Teams will see them differently, but that's really important to understand, I think, as we get through this draft process. So you want to check that out if you're not yet a member of LandryFootball.com. Highly encourage you to do so today. Scouting season offer is still available for you. Check that out. It'll get you, let's say, it's less than $10 a month. If you get the year membership, it's even cheaper than that. It'll get you this type of information. You can also, by the way, go back, click the free agency button and see kind of how players graded out in the league this past year and the free agent stuff. So it's like having your own scouting department. What are we going to do after the draft? We're going to work on getting through the college tape. First of all, getting you ready for an early look at the class of 2022 in the draft. We're going to start breaking down the rosters in the NFL now when the draft is over, and college football, getting through all the college tape. So it never stops for us. So you want to be involved at LandryFootball.com 12 months a year. The other thing that we wanted to mention to get out of the way, and I see that Fantasy Football 101 has made a return. Welcome back. He is the guy you need to thank or blame, depending on your circumstances. So we doing a show last Tuesday night, the Football Film Room show, and Fantasy Football 101 says, "Why don't you do a draft show?" And the first thing is, been doing this 35 plus years, and most of the time, I've been in the draft room. As I've kind of gone more of a consultant role, it's been more virtual. That combines with the modern day technology of being able to do things virtually a little more. We had COVID, obviously, that's making even more virtual. So I'm thinking, I can't do a draft show. I mean, I'm dealing with these texts, these DMs, the phone, with the text. Not as much phone calls. It used to be a lot of phone calls, but just, it's a lot easier to do the text thing now for, give and take. I said, I'm going to be dealing with all that. I can't do a draft show. I mean, yeah, I'm too busy. I went to bed thinking about it. And I said, what? You know what? Never really thought about it. Let's do a draft show. Let's take the behind the scenes look, give an unvarnished look to the fans. Yeah, some of the stuff that I really can't look, if there's something that I have to deal with, and if it's a text and nobody's going to see it, whatever. But I'm going to be able to provide you much better information, a lot more information, I think, than just the package stuff that you're going to get on TV. So yeah, so I said, why not? Let's do it. It's going to be tiring. I don't know. You can imagine talking for, I don't know, 7-8 hours. Thursday, same Friday night, Saturday. Maybe tough. As long as the voice will handle it, I'll do it. But there'll be a lot of it's going to be a different show. It's going to be different like this. We'll have a theme. We'll have an idea on the show. But on the draft show, we know what it's about. It's reacting to the draft. What's coming up? What's next? What just happened? What's going on behind the scenes? What's the scuttlebutt? Whatever. You guys join the chat room a lot. I encourage you, draft night, do the chat room. But I can't promise you that I'm going to be able to see it with 9 other things going on at the same time. So we'll try to do that. Basically, give you an unvarnished look, a behind the scenes look at least my involvement in the draft. We'll react to the picks. We'll talk about it. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So you got Football Fantasy 1-on-1 to thank for it. Because he came up with the idea. I mean, it's not like I didn't think about doing it. I just thought, well, sometimes you get so involved in something. It's good to know what people want and whether it's doable. Some people say, we'd like you to do it during the football season with all the games. Well, I can't do that because it takes a lot of concentrated effort to do this show, but on the draft, but there are no games going on or anything. I can just deal with texts and DMs and talking about things and reacting to it. With games, it's tough enough to follow and chart and grade, at least get a feel for 6 games and be talking to people and looking away. I can't look away from the screen. So it's a little bit tougher to do on those during game day. But we may be able to work something out for a specific game or what have you. We'll see. We'll address that at some point. Now we're on to the draft, and we're really excited about that. We're excited about bringing you something that's a little unique. Hopefully it won't flop and you'll say, God, Chris, this show sucks. It's not going to be the smooth flowing, let's go to this feature and that. And, I think that, it's going to be reactionary. It's going to be informative. It's going to be talking about what goes on. It may involved in certain situations, and I'll certainly try to do my best to inform without invading somebody's privacy, which I think and hope that you'll respect that. And I know all of you folks will. So we've gone through 2 divisions. I want to get to something off the top, and I want to hit a couple questions that you guys have brought up in the chat room. You will hear things, and you're going to hear it even more and more the rest of this week and early next week. So the news yesterday was, what's the news? What's the scuttlebutt? What's the talk? The talk was, by the way, Giants are interested in moving down. Carolina's fielding calls about moving down. Whom else? The Dolphins Yeah, they might move down. Folks, it's not that the information is inaccurate. Put it in context. Of course, you tell the media that, yeah, we absolutely are interested in fielding phone calls. We certainly would consider moving down. We certainly consider moving up. You float that out, particularly because you want other people to be aware you're open for business. It's a way to kind of get information out there. So, would the Dolphins be willing to move down? Well, maybe. They're not saying the pick's for sale, but what if they've got two guys that they really like and they're gone? Well, then quarterback's there. Somebody wants to move up. Sure, they might be willing to move down. So you float that out there, because you're floating that out there doesn't mean you're trying to do that. You're just kind of wanting to create some conversation in the league that, hey, be aware we might be willing to do it. Carolina is definitely in a we're open for business mode. So they're floating it out there. Hey, you know what? We've got some number of teams that have called. Well, you know what? Let's give them a call. Maybe we'll see. That's kind of how things are done. The Giants never moved up, never moved down. That's not what you have to. It might be willing to do. Why is that out there? Okay, it's something to write about. I get it. You throw a bone to Schefter or one of those guys. What you're doing is basically alerting other folks that you might be open for business, depending on circumstances, depending upon what your board looks like, as I've said before. Depending on who's there, who's not there. Who's not there, you might be willing to move down. Who's there, you might be willing to move up, or you might just be comfortable staying. But you want all options open. You want to have all options available to you come draft night. So you plant a lot of seeds. It does not necessarily indicative of what you're thinking. The moves, the wording, it's basically using the media. First of all, the teams are not concerned about what the fans think or who the fans think they're going to take. To some degree, you may want to maybe prepare fans, but that's not what it's about. What it's about is to create a smokescreen, because what the media puts out there, all the other teams are going to hear. So you definitely like to throw people off the scent of maybe what you'd like to do, or at least be vague. So if there's an assumption, if you're Miami and there's an assumption that you're going to take such and such a player, well, the one thing you'd like to try to put out there is that throw out another possibilities, because I told you the story last week, didn't I, about how people thought we were going to take Steve McNair, and someone in our organization was a little bit braggadocious about this and that and wanting to kind of self-promote. And, well, there was an assumption, a correct assumption, that we were going to draft Steve McNair. Well, what that does, it creates a target for somebody to try to smoke you into, well, look, somebody's wanting to move up. Knowing that you want a certain player, it could force, if it's known that Miami wants one certain guy, and they probably got a couple of guys that they like, but maybe one in particular, then it makes them vulnerable to Cincinnati to call up and say, we're getting a call here. So let's say it's player A, and you are putting it out there that, or there's an assumption that you're going to take a guy. Well, you don't want that. You don't want to be played. And then also you don't want to have the egg on your face that, well, they wanted this guy and you lost the guy. It's in today's world, it's bad PR. So I guess the point is you're going to hear a lot of that, and people, and I got no problem with you putting in chat room. Well, I hear, yeah, you're going to hear a lot, because the media will want you to, the teams will want the media to put certain things out. So it is done for a purpose. And remember, those who talk don't know. Those who know don't talk. And so keep that in mind, that a lot of that comes about with a purpose, with an initiative. It serves no purpose to tell you what you're going to do. Creating an air of ambiguity in a world where everybody wants to know, well, why don't the Jaguars just come out and say they're going to take Trevor Lawrence? Well, kind of alluded to it. Why don't you just go? My answer is, why would you? Well, the Jets say they're going to take Zach Wilson, assuming that they're going to take one. Why would you? What's the benefit of saying this is what you're going to do? You know, there's no, well, what's the point? And why is it a problem? Well, why would it help you to say it? It's just not relevant. You don't know what would happen. I don't want to be dramatic. What if something happens to somebody? What if you come out and say, yep, that's what we plan. We're planning on take John Doe. And something really bad happens to John Doe. Then you got egg on your face. You've already publicly stated you're going to draft him at whatever, 2. Something bad happens to him. You just, obviously now you're not taking him. You're doing something else. And everybody knows that you were going to take the other guy. Well, the player that you now take thinks, well, you wanted the other guy. Now you got me. Everybody now knows who you wanted. Well, Chris, everybody knows who they want anyway. No, you don't. You make an assumption, and that's fine. But you don't know for certain. What they're going to do. So, anyway, I think those things are important to understand this time of year. A couple of questions before we get into the positions. Nola Jack says, do you know if some teams have downgraded players who opted out in 20? No, you don't. You don't downgrade them for opting out. What potentially hurts you is your ability to play and play well. So by proxy, if somebody played and performed well, I mean, let's take Jamie Newman. No one's going to, you opted out, by God, I'm just knocking you down a couple of grade levels. No. But the whole point was, had he played and performed well, he could have helped himself. So you want to look at that as a negative by not playing, not the decision as much as what the playing could have done. Does it make you ask more questions about a guy's competitiveness, or maybe even wonder if he's a little selfish? That in and of itself is not necessarily the case, but it causes you maybe a little bit more concern and things that you need to work through. So no. Rich Coach says, isn't smoke and mirrors in order to throw the fans and media off the team's trail of whom they are going? Well, the media, the fans don't really matter a whole lot. But again, as I said earlier, it throws the media, it throws other teams off because the media is putting it out. So I think those things are fun. And then I don't know what is there a lot of value in the later rounds, LSU talk? Yeah, there is. Some positions a little more than others. There absolutely is. There's good value, and I think there's in most drafts, I don't think people quite get this, that when you draft, each team only have about 100, 150 tops players on their board that fits them. I have a lot more because it's 32 teams, and while a lot of the players are the same, some of them differ. So you got more names, more people. You will take your entire draft, all of your 7-round picks, plus your undrafted free agents. You'll work off of that. So you're in good shape if you do that. Your board, every board looks a little different. Rich Coat says, was there some resistance when you drafted Javon Curse? No, we had, again, that is something that you develop over time. As I said before, if you're arguing at this point, I think there's some, I call them discussions. I think there's some finalizing of grades in terms of separation. We got these 4th-round tackles, these 5th-round corners. How do we see them? We have these 5 or 6 guys stacked in the right order in the same grade group. Is somebody a grade level lower overall? Because remember, got your area scout, but in your crossover and in your national grade, but then you've got the overall team grade. Once you put the overall team grade on, I call it the blue grade. When we blue graded a player, put the grade on him, that's it. That's the football grade. Now, here's what's happening a little bit more right now. Some people may be lowering a player, and everybody has a philosophy of different way of doing it. I'll tell you my philosophy on the board. With the medical grades right now, there's some people that are lowering or putting the medical grade on that may affect the draft status of certain players. A lot of people like Landon Dickerson of Alabama, but wonder about medically, it may affect them. Caleb Farley, a lot of teams may be concerned about him, but all it takes is maybe a couple of teams that doesn't. All it takes is one. So anyway, here's how I do it. So the grade has the final football grade on it, and there's I think there are 2 ways to do it. One, I don't know if you've ever seen, I call them little buttons, but those little round stickers, colored stickers, you can do that, or that denote certain things. We call them shields. I don't know if you've ever seen, when you were younger in school, if you had those little book report looking things where it was like you could see through it, but it was colored, like there was red, maybe blue and yellow and orange. And, they're like, you put you slide them in, it kind of hold the papers together. So maybe you had like a little book report thing. It was that type of material. And on the card, we put a shield on it. So a certain medical grade would denote, like a full medical concern would have a full red shield. If it was a slight one, we might have a half or a little bit. Call it a shield, a medical shield. We had a code for a substance abuse. That was a yellow shield. Then we had a character shield, which was a blue shield. You can still see the name, the blue shield. This is why I like doing it. Some people, well, take them off the board. No, I'm not taking them off the board. I'm not taking them on my team, but he goes up on the board where his football grade puts him, and then I put the shield on him. That is my designation to pass him over. I'm not gonna take him off the board. Somebody might take him, and and that's just semantics, because the acronym for we're taking him off the board is we wouldn't take him. Well, that's the same thing I'm doing. It's just I'm not physically taking him off the board. I'm keeping him up there because I want to know where his football grade is. Because at some point, depending upon the situation, how bad medical, how bad chemical abuse, how bad character, at some point would I consider taking him? Okay, he's the 15th best player in the draft. In the 7th round, would I consider taking him? if I'm not happy, well, I want at least to have that option on my board. I choose to not take him or I choose to take him, but I don't want to lose sight of him. That's how I did it. So there was a player out of Southern Illinois years ago by the name of Damon Jones. He was a tight end. And it was a long time ago, folks. This was 25 years ago. I don't know, 28 years. It's a long time ago. He was a top 20 player in the draft. Top 20 grade. First round grade. But there was a character issue. I wasn't going to take him. And I think he was 19th on our board. The 19th guy stacked in our horizontal board. Had the yellow shield on. The blue shield on him. And wasn't going to take him, of course. Now, I knew this situation. Would I consider signing him as an undrafted free agent? Would I consider drafting him with an extra 7th round pick? Consider it. Consider it might mean, yeah, we do. No, we don't. I just wanted to have the card up there. Somebody takes him. He needs to go on that team. We take him off the board and put him on where he gets drafted. You may not take him, but somebody else might. So you can't lose sight of him. Well, actually, in this case, the Bengals took him. And that's fine. I probably wouldn't have drafted him in the 7th round due to his situation. But I wanted to have it. So I grade them where there is football, and I'll put the shield on them. So that's kind of the way you do things. That's the right process to go through in putting together the draft board. Real quick, I need to get on to the AFC South before we run out of time. Got a little time today. Don't want to go too far over. What was your scouting evaluations of Kenny Holmes out of Miami? Well, we like Kenny. Probably overgraded him, actually. Terrence Newman out of Kansas State was a big physical corner. LSU Talk says New York Jets fans are hard to please. Was Jeff Lageman the worst first-round choice in recent memory? Well, they had a few. That was certainly one of them. I don't know. I have to think about it. I don't know. Is FRKNKR? Do you read my comment? Yeah, I don't understand some. It premiere better than the past than now. I don't know what you mean. Where am I from? From Louisiana originally. And what's my favorite team? Don't have a favorite team. I've worked in the league a long time and do work for a lot of teams in the league. In college, I coached at LSU, but do a lot of things for a lot of different programs. And when you get to work in it, you really kind of develop relationships, and you really don't. It's one of the fun things about it is it doesn't matter who wins or loses. I want everybody to be successful and win, but the reality is, for the winners, you got losers. But I don't have any favorites. I enjoy watching it regardless who wins. All right, AFC South. So we move on. Desean Watson situation has certainly taken over the storyline for that organization and that team. Look, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. I don't know what's going to come of it. We'll see. But the quarterback situation will have to be addressed at some point. It does not mean, well, what quarterback are they going to take in this draft? Don't know. Don't know if they're going to have someone available at the right spot to take one. You don't just waste a pick on a quarterback to say, yeah, draft that quarterback. There he is. Boom. We drafted him. There he is. How do you grade him? How do you feel he can help you? That's the real key. But certainly the future there is big. They also need 2 defensive linemen. It was the worst run defense in the NFL last year. They missed DJ Reader. They signed Malik Collins. They need help there. They need 2 guards. They traded for Marcus Cannon. They signed Lane Taylor, but the interior blocking on both sides, really poor. So you've got both sides of the line of scrimmage has really deteriorated in Houston. They need help at corner. They signed Terrence Mitchell and Alex Erickson. We'll get to the evaluation of those guys in a second, but they were bad defending the run. They were probably just as bad defending the pass. Really bad. They signed Justin Britt at center. Got some issues there. So the interior of the offensive line's bad. Edge rusher. They don't have much there. Opposite Whitney Merciless. Signed Chris Conley. Not enough receiver help. They need a complement to Justin Reed at safety. Desmond King and Terrence Brook, I think, can help, but maybe a young guy at the right spot. Tight end. Just lots of drop balls, not much there. Running back depth. A lot of needs for that team. What have they done? Cameron Johnson, the punter, was re-signed. Terrence Marshall, corner from the Browns, signed with the Texans. He was thrust in that lineup due to the injury to Gritty Williams and played pretty well. He's a really good tackler. Not a bad signing for them, 2-year deal. They signed Jordan Jenkins from the Jets. He's 15 sacks in 2 years, but he's really dropped off. His play's dropped off a little. He's better off as the second pass rusher, and that's kind of what he is and what his role is going to be. The target potential. Edge rusher. Merciless, I mentioned, still very good. Need somebody on the other side. He's 31. It may be, if not the worst, one of the worst depth edge rush depth charts in the league. Obviously, we're dealing with a second-round pick. You're dealing with a different level of guy. Carlos Basham, Ronnie Perkins, Patrick Jones type. Could use an outside receiver, as we mentioned. Brandon Cooks is under contract for 3 more years. See if he continues to play. Texans lost Will Fuller to free agency. When he was sidelined, Chad Henson played over Isaiah Coulter and Hanson. Was let go. Chris Conley is the number 2 outside receiver. He's on a 1-year contract. Must need. De'Ami Brown, Tylan Wallace, Seth Williams. Candidates maybe third roundish. Talked about the defensive line. Defensive tackle, the interior defensive line was a mess. Blaylock was brutal as a rookie. Brandon Dunn couldn't hold up against the run. Got some issues there. Center, we talked about. Guard is a need too. They were 32nd in rushing the football. Maybe somebody like a Quinn Miners is something that they might add. And then outside corner. They have one answer with Bradley Roby, but Vernon Hargraves was picked on last year, 1-year contract. They'll be switching more to a cover 2 look with Lovie Smith. So the Kelvin Josephs, will, probably he'll be gone. But Adebo, Melifanu, look, they don't have a ton of picks, and they got a lot of needs. They may be in as worse shape as anybody in the league right now. When you look at the totality of Desean Watson's probably not coming back. We don't know his situation, but the likelihood of him coming back in Houston. So you don't have a quarterback. You don't have a good roster. You have bad morale, and you don't have a lot of picks, including not having a number 1. I mean, other than that, how bad are they? That's a team that was competing and quite frankly, the team to beat in that division for quite some time, and they've fallen off. Indianapolis. Tough loss when Costanzo announced his retirement. He's graded out top 10, top 12 pass protection in the last several years. On defense, you got a major hole on the edge. The edge defenders ranked 25th in combined pass rush efficiency. They won 11 games. They made the playoffs. They actually played Buffalo pretty well. Lost a close game. Where do they go from here? It's a deep tackle draft. They're going to have to address it and probably plug and play a starter, or they're going to have to do something with making a move on the pro side. Carson Wentz is signed. We know that was the biggest need. There's a lot of optimism there. Carson Wentz played for Frank Reich. Is every reason to believe that that could be an upgrade. Left tackle. Look, Sam TV is not the answer, so they got to get the answer, and they're probably going to have to be a plug-and-play guy. Defensive end. Justin Houston is not as productive. He's nearing retirement. That was an issue in watching him play last year. T.Y. Hilton re-signed. Still got some play left in him. They re-signed Xavier Rhodes. Malik Hooker has not quite been the player that I thought he would be. Injury issues has really retarded his development. Linebackers a need. Look what they've done in free agency. Okay, signed Chris Reed from the Panthers. The guard was forced in the starting lineup because of injury last year. And Carolina did a really nice job. He's a quality rotational guy, backup guy. Isaac Rochelle, the defensive tackle from the Chargers, is a adequate run stuffer. Xavier Rhodes that we mentioned re-signed. The one thing that I would wonder about is the injuries, because he's had a history of them and he's now 31. The guy can play, and when he's been healthy, he's played very well, and he's played like a true shutdown corner. So that's a positive. T.Y. Hilton, was going to need to get a little bit more in tune with Carson Wentz than he did with Phillip Rivers early on. And then we just talked about Malik Hooker's situation. Marlon Mack is a solid back. That's, I think a real quality number 2. If he can stay healthy toward the Achilles, and that was a big problem. So let's look at left tackle. Targets. Right tackle set with Brandon Smith, and I think he has a chance to be a good long-term answer there. But the left tackle, and, you got Quentin Nelson. So somebody that's going to come in is likely going to line up against as good a guard as there is in football. So where would they go? I mean, I think you look at where some of the options are at tackle, where it may fall come draft night, is would a Vera Tucker slip? Probably not. Would Darashaw be there? That would be great value. I think Tevin Jenkins, maybe, Mayfield or Leatherwood, that's maybe a little bit of a reach, but they may do that. They may do that at 21. We'll see. I think they'll be a good tackle. One of them will be there. Sewell will be gone. I expect Tucker to be gone. I expect Slater to be gone. I think between Darashaw, Jenkins, Mayfield, I think there are 3 guys. Out of those 3 guys, one of those guys will be there. That's my guess. If not, then they've got to look at a Sam Cosmi or a Alex Leatherwood or Dylan Radness or Jackson Carman. But left tackle guys, that might be something. Let's look for them to maybe make a move if they want to. If you see some of those tackles coming off the board, they certainly like to move up. The top 3 edge rushers that played last year, Justin Houston, Danico Autry, and Al-Qadim Muhammad, were all free agents. They don't blitz a whole lot. So they need better edge rushers. DeForest Buckner is a player, but you can't do it all. They need an outside corner. Xavier Rhodes, one thing. He's a good cover 2 corner. He's a good fit there. That's in terms of value, and as much as the left tackle need is there, I don't think you'll force the pick there either. I think you have to maybe make a trade. You have to do something, but you have to look at a J.C. Horn or a Greg Newsome there in consideration, because that is a very important position there, obviously. You need to have some physicality. You need to have some toughness there. Jacksonville. They have more cap space than anybody heading into the league. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, quarterback need at the top. That's what they'll do. But let's start thinking about that. Let's kind of get off that a little bit, since that's pretty obvious what they're going to do there. Got to surround this guy immediately. They franchised Cam Robinson in the hopes that they can become a really good player. And he's just not that yet. He has left tackle feet, left tackle potential. They've got to get it out of him. But that's left tackle improvement in-house is something they need to look at. And certainly we'll get to the options, but in the draft, but they absolutely maybe need to add a young guy at that spot. Absolutely need to add a young guy at that spot, I should say. Defensive tackle. They really miss Calais Campbell. That's been a big issue there. Ray Robertson-Harris, Tyson Alualu, and Dehan Ward are guys that have got some experience in the league that can be serviceable, but they've got to upgrade at defensive tackle. It's not a deep year. We'll see if one of those tackles, top of the second round, could be the pick. We'll get into that in a second. Safety, they signed Raeshawn Jenkins. That's a big need. They need to bolster the middle of that defense. Safety's big. Corner, Sidney Jones, wasn't a real fit. They need help across from C.J. Henderson, who's a player. Signed Shaq Griffin. They need a tight end, a huge hole there. Edge rush depth, don't have much behind Josh Allen and Caleb Chason. Depth at running back. Carlos Hyde is a guy that can fit a role, but you've got to get somebody with a little bit more special run skills. What have they done in free agency? Jamal Agnew is one of the top kick returners in the league. Shaq Griffin missed a handful of games. Never looked quite the same when he came back from the injury, but the guy's got a lot of ability. When he's been healthy, he's played very well. Marvin Jones is coming off a good season with the Lions. And he really stepped up when Kenny Golladay was signed. Was injured. But he is 31. Raeshawn Jenkins, I think, has made some nice improvements in his game, but misses too many tackles for me at safety, but he's got some ability. Ray Robertson-Harris, the defensive end, defensive tackle, rotational guy with the Bears, was missed last year. He was on injured reserve. I think he's a quality guy. I think he's not a great player. He's a very solid guy that can play multiple spots fairly well. I think he's a good rotational guy and a really good signing. Aubrey Jones, nearing 30, but he can still play pretty well. So hoping with what they have that they've got something. Sidney Jones, we talked a little bit about him. He struggled in Philadelphia. He's still young. They're hoping he can turn his career around. They're gambling on that. Dede Westbrook could be a nice option in the slot next year. Played just 2 games because of the torn ACL last year, but he's got some ability. Still pretty young at 27. Talked about Cam Robinson. The tag was put on him. You know, the former second-round pick. He's been nearly a bust, but they think maybe they can push him with the right guy. We'll see. And Tyler Shatley gives them some interior offensive line depth, center guard ability, a backup guy, serviceable. The quarterback situation we've talked about, the slot corner. Let's get to that. Urban likes to play aggressive man coverage. Joe Cullen comes over and is a heavy man cover coach from the Ravens. two studs on the perimeter in Henderson and Jack Griffin. Neither can play the slot well. So you see, a lot of times you can find an outside guy and you move one of your starters into the slot. Folks, that slot position is a starter position. Sidney Jones, we just talked about. He can't play the slot. So they've got three outside guys. They are devoid of a starting slot corner. That needs, with 3/4 of the passing attempts coming out of three wide receiver sets, folks, you've got to be able to play the slot. It's a full-time position. Got to be addressed. So, they've got the 25th pick, but Trevon Moore be the answer. He's a guy that can play inside in the slot, be a big guy, play some safety. It's an option there. Asante Samuel, maybe. Aaron Robinson, maybe a little later. Elijah Molden, guys like that. Left tackle. So, going to give Cam Robinson a shot, put the tag on him, but that's a 1 year. Let's see if you can do it. Doesn't have ties to the new contract. Contract expires after this year. He's been a low-end left tackle starter, and they're going to need better blindside protection than previous staff was able to provide, previous quarterback had. So at 25, we just rinse and repeat, right? With Indianapolis. Offensive tackle. Who's going to be there? Same guys. Darashaw. You go down Leatherwood and Radness and Eichenberg. Cosme. A little bit later, Jackson Carman, James Hudson, and Spencer Brown. They're going to need help at tackle. And then they really need a F-back, a move tight end for this offense. That's what Urban likes, what he's traditionally liked, and I think that's what he's going to want. They need a Jordan Reed, Jonnu Smith type guy. Brevin Jordan fits that mold. Now, if you're looking for online tight end, certainly Freiermuth and Tommy Tremble and Hunter Long, but that's just some of the options there. Brevin Jordan would be a good fit for that F-back. That's what he's really all about. And the Tennessee Titans got a potential star, a star quality player in A.J. Brown. Not potential. He's actually seen it. He's productive. He's been among the best receivers at getting depth in his routes off the line of scrimmage. And he's really, really good. He's a true number one. You've got to focus your coverage against him. But they need some help. Corey Davis departed. Jonnu Smith is departed. Arthur Smith is departed as the play caller now with Atlanta. Defensively, the overall at secondary, it got rid of Adoree Jackson and Malcolm Butler and Desmond King, slot receiver, walked. They did sign Jackrabbit Janoris Jenkins to man one of the outside spot. And I think Kristen Fulton is going to be a player and is going to play opposite him. Jenkins was actually pretty good for the Saints last year, graded up pretty well. And I think Fulton's pretty good. And then Kevin Johnson's kind of been bouncing the slot and outside for the past couple of years. So that's an area that they'll have to look at. Let's get into, edge rushers. Their pass rush was not very good, so they signed Bud Dupree. Linebacker, he re-signed J1 Brown, and he would have been difficult to replace. Corey Davis moved on. They signed Josh Reynolds at receiver. We went over that. Corners, we just talked about that situation. Janoris Jenkins and Kevin Johnson helps. And the great thing about making those moves in free agency is it plugs a hole so that it allows you to be true to your draft board a little bit more. Tackle, we all know about the bust of Isaiah Wilson. They signed Kendall Lamb. He is a reserve guy, an insurance guy, not a consistent quality starter. Defensive tackle, they signed Danico Autry. It's a need there. And then we'll see if at some point, if they like a quarterback to maybe begin to grow behind Tannehill. I don't know. Bud Dupree is a really good player. The Steelers missed him down the stretch. I thought it was a big problem for them in Pittsburgh not being able to finish a lot of games, and not having him was a big part of it. Kevin Johnson from the Browns, he struggled last year, mainly due to injuries. He has graded out very well in the slot when he's been healthy. So that is a healthy, you got something there. Janoris Jenkins, we just talked about, but he's also 32. Let me add that. Danico Autry can play inside and outside on the defensive line, jack of all trades, multiple spots, like that versatility that he can bring. Josh Reynolds has done pretty well as the Rams' third receiver. Since Brandon Cooks left the team, he's certainly got some value. Jayon Brown, we talked about the re-sign there. This guy's an underrated linebacker, particularly when it comes into coverage. He's graded out very well. It's 26. Gostkowski got off to a rush start, but finished strong at place kicker. Anthony Ferkser, the tight end, the RFA, it was their solid as their second tight end last year. So let's take a look at it. Outside receiver. Between Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, John O. Smith, they have about 250 available targets available in the league. Finding A.J. Brown some help is big priority. Where will they go at 22? Who's going to be there? I expect the top three are going to be gone. Do they dip into the high second-round value? Terrence Marshall. They like big guys, so Terrence Marshall will probably be more amenable to them than, say, an Elijah Moore. But Elijah Moore, to me, would be some good value. Would they dip into, say, Rashad Bateman, who's a really good player? Or, do they pass a better player on the board at another spot? Talked about outside corner. Talk about Jenkins and Johnson. But if J.C. Horn's on the board, if Greg Newsom's on the board, you got to consider that. At 53, Asante Samuel, Melifanu, Tyson Campbell, some other options. Tight end. Now they're a big tight end personnel team. They over 50% of the time they line up in two tight ends, and they got only Ferkser back. He was the backup. And he's, somebody that, whether it's Tommy Tremble or Hunter Long, Trey McKitty, makes some sense for them. Freiermuth, Brevin Jordan would be their F-back. Move tight end. That makes a lot of sense. And then strong safety. For Carl was a cap casualty. Amani Hooker hasn't quite played out. So, again, at 22, Morig, Paris Ford down the road. Those are some of the options. So that's a look at the AFC South this afternoon at 4 p.m. Central. We're going to continue this series, and we're going to do the AFC West. And a reminder that we are going to be on every day this week at 4 p.m. Central. And then we'll do it next week. And we've got the full NFL draft show. Take you pick by pick. Have a lot of fun with that. Check out all the scouting reports and all the draft boards over at LandryFootball.com. A couple of questions here. Tony says, morning, Chris. You said all the teams are done with their draft boards. Wondering what GM's doing the last week before the draft. Well, they're not done with their draft boards, Tony. That's the point. They're not done with their draft boards. They're finishing and finalizing their draft boards, and will do so, say, by this weekend. But you're not done. You're still gathering more medical information. You're still making sure on the security checks on the players. You are making sure and kind of doubling back on your board, making sure that there are no gaps. There's no, again, making sure if you got, 6 fourth-round graded receivers that they're in the right order, and make sure that you do all the fine-tuning. I always spent time, Tony, even though I'm going to get through my entire draft and I'm going to sign all my undrafted free agents off my draft board, you have what we call before 9 grades, were what we call priority free agents. If the draft board's picked clean, or we didn't want to take somebody that was still on our draftable board because they had a character or medical issue, I wanted to make sure, and we spent a lot of time on that, to make sure that we put the 4-9 grades, which there usually are plentiful. We got them all in the right order at each position. So my point is draft board's picked clean, got to add a guard. We're going with this guy first, offer this guy first, this guy second. I mean, we're going down in order. We're not just hopscotching. We got a plan. The other thing that we're trying to do is that last week, let's just assume, so that they're not finalized with the draft board yet. Let's get to the point where, because by this weekend, I wanted to have, by Friday, I wanted to have the position boards done, the vertical boards done. Then I wanted to spend on the horizontal board, stacking them. So that becomes a little bit of where you're looking at guys. If you've done it right, you take all the 7.0 grades, put them in the right. Take all the 6.9 grades, put them in the right. Take all the 6.5 grades. I got a lot more of those guys. Okay, 6.4 grades, even more of those guys. 6.0, even more of those. 5.9s, even more of those. 5.5s, even more of those. That'll take you up to about 200 players. You want to make sure that they're in the right order. So you spend a lot of time on that, and you will spend Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, good 4 days on that. Good 12 hours, food brought in, you go through it. You may say, boy, look, yeah, we all see this is the order of these 3 guys, but man, I'm not sure about the next 3. I think this, I think that, we think that. Let's get the tape. We'll decide it right now. Everybody's in here. Remember, speak now, forever hold your peace. You're done. Don't be going on and saying, I think we should have done. No, say it here. Period. So we do all that. Then, so we get to that point. The top overall ball, the horizontal board is done. Then you do spend a lot of time on scenarios. What I tried to do is remember the whole draft board, draft trade charts. Draft trade charts that you read, to me, are useless. They're only a guide from a universal historical trading sense, which is okay. I got to marry the point totals for each of the picks in the draft. I married up to my draft board after I've set up the 150 board. So now I can equate the numbers because I know where the drop-off points are. So it might be, so again, and this is why it's so important to understand this. If you got a guy that you think is the 3rd best player in the draft, but he's still there at 15, and you make a trade up to 10, and you move up 5 spots, people might say, well, it's only worth this. Well, it's only worth that historically for that spot. But now you're going to get that player. That means an awful lot to you that you think is worth 3rd. You've got to factor that in. So I'm not going to offer them the form. I'm not going to overoffer them because I know they're working off that chart. But I'm working off that chart plus my chart that says I'd be willing to go even more. I'm not going to offer it, but I'm willing to go even more. So let's just say it's a 3rd to move to a certain spot. I would play around with it, and they might say, I'd absolutely do it for a 3rd. Somebody offers me a 3rd. I might say, you know what? I can do it for a third, but I need a sweetener. How about you throw in the 6? How about we switch spots in the 4th, which maybe I'll go up 15 spots. They're happy. They're getting a great deal. They're getting great value. But because I've got the 3rd player on my draft board that I can get at 10, hey, that's worth a lot. So you can't just equate the slots to numbers. You have to do that and equate the player you can get at that slot. That's the real determining factor. So I spent a lot of time on that, making sure that I finalized that and had that in order. And we spent a lot of time going through maybe scenarios and who might be there and what do we do. Okay, these guys are all gone. What do we do? Well, we try to move out, and what would you be willing to do? Again, your desire to move out is relative to who's on the board and how fanned out your board is with a number of players. That'll determine where you want to move out, how far you want to move down, right, and how willing you are to move down. If you got your guy, not only do you want to stay and not move out, you might even want to consider moving up. You go through those scenarios beforehand. So you have a plan, you have a game plan, and then you just got to react to the moment as the player's coming off the board. So you're spending a lot of time gathering information, a lot of time, verifying. Now, I will tell you, this year, everybody's a little bit late in getting all the information on medicals. So it is not normal this year. It is definitely more abnormal relative to the medicals. So that's kind of thrown a wrench into it. Do the Dolphins need a running back? Are they looking for 1 or 2 in the draft? Yeah, we talked about that, Spartan Martin, we went over that. I don't know if you heard it. We went through the AFC East on Monday, and we went through their running back situation. We talked about how that factored into their needs, how much of a priority, and who the targets would be. So, yeah, absolutely. I think at the right spot they would be. What are your thoughts on Brandon Ayuk going forward? Do you think he can take the next step, become a stud? I think Brandon can become a good player. I do. I think he's got some playmaking ability. Off those slow starts, not as easy as people think at receiver. With all the side adjustments, is quite the challenge. So I still am holding out hope that he can be a really good player for them as they go forward. Folks, a reminder, check out the show this afternoon, 4 p.m. Central, as we'll go through the NFC West. That's correct. The Denver Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to go through those rosters, go through the needs, go through everything, work our way through the league. A reminder, if you're not yet a member of LandryFootball.com, what are you waiting for? Get the horizontal board. Get the vertical boards. Understand what those things mean, how draft boards are truly set up. Get scouting reports on all of those players. We got it all for you. We'll take you inside each and every team's draft room. On the clock, draft room analysis for each of the teams. We got it all for you there. So check it out today. Spread the word, if you would, about our draft show. Make it a big party. Up to you guys. Bring in as many of your friends. Look, it's free. You come into the chat room. You're going to be able to catch it right here on twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football, Landry Football on Facebook, the YouTube channel, Landry Football. You can catch it at any of those streaming devices, streaming platforms. So check it out. No excuse. Be a part of it. Look, I understand you may not be able to be there for 8 hours. I have to be. I don't know if I'm going to survive 6, 7, 8 hours, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. So come and help and keep me company and certainly join us. Spread the word about what we're doing right here, and particularly the draft, that will give you something that's a little bit unique and certainly better than what the normal stale stuff of, well, I think this and I think that. Will give you some real understanding of why teams are doing it and whether I think it makes sense or doesn't make sense. We're going to get to a lot of that. So check it out. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time this afternoon, 4 p.m. Central. Check us out. We'll talk to you then, talking AFC West. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you later today.